good? All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, January 21st, 2025. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum present this morning with 4 out of 5 commissioners in attendance. Commissioners, we do need to amend the agenda before you this morning. We had a request come in late after the print deadline that also has some other deadlines that need to be hopefully approved prior to the end of the month. And so with that, we would be adding the addition of assigning resolution 23-08-CC-03 from 307 Horse Racing Incorporated to 307 Horse Racing LLC. Basically, they have converted from a Wyoming corporation to a Wyoming liability company or limited liability company. And so they will be, I believe, online to help us present that. If we could place this between items 5 and 6 under tab C, we will take up the matter at this time. So with that, if there's not any questions, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. It's going to move us right along into tab A. Before you this morning are 4 budget amendments, which we'll have to have a public hearing on. The first is resolution 25-01-CL-04, a budget amendment to increase the fiscal year 25 capital projects road and bridge project for the skid steer in the amount of $15,335. With us this morning is accounting specialist Rebecca Romero. Good morning.
Good morning. So the capital committee met and I attached a memo to the first budget amendment, and it has the breakout of which projects we feel could be completed by the end of the fiscal year. And I did each budget amendment separately so that you could either approve one or all or do what you guys needed to do. And as a reminder, this will come out of the general county reserves.
Thanks, Rebecca. Questions? I guess we'll handle them individually just because that's how they're written. Any questions on the first budget amendment? Commissioner Slaughter?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. As a member of the Capital Committee, the Board of County Commissioners at our last meeting had discussion with respect to our capital needs for fiscal year 25. And there was some question as to whether there potentially was additional revenue available once we had finalized the fiscal 25 budget. And the Capital Committee was asked to look and see if there were projects that would be potentially beneficial and that we could move from those which were dropped at the time of our initial budget. So we used the priority of having items which were still considered to be of major importance on the capital list, along with the criteria that it would be a project that could be handled by the end of this fiscal year. And this was the list that the Capital Committee came up with that Rebecca has prepared and is presenting to us today.
Very good. Thanks, Commissioner. Additional comments or questions on this first budget amendment? If not, we do need to open this up to a public hearing. So at this time, if there's anyone that would like to speak to this budget amendment, which is a skid steer mounted kick broom, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve resolution 25-01-CL-04, which is an increase of $15,335 for road and bridge.
You have a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Just gonna move us to item number 2 under tab A, which is resolution 25-01-CL-05. Budget amendment to increase the fiscal year 25 capital projects, facilities custodial, a new carpet cleaner in the amount of 13,500, and we'll hand it back to Rebecca.
Yeah, so again, this is what the capital committee sees could be completed by the end of the fiscal year. This was on the list, I believe, the last 2 years. So it's something that we would like to get done this fiscal year.
Very good. Questions on this amendment? If not, we do need to open this up for public hearings at this time. If there's anyone online or in the audience that would like to speak to this budget amendment, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve resolution 25-01-CL-05 in the amount of $13,500 for a facilities custodial increase to buy a new carpet cleaner.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would second that. I don't want dirty carpets.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. It's going to move us right along to item number 3, which is resolution 25-01-CL-06, a budget amendment to increase the fiscal year 25 capital projects for facilities, parks, and recreation for fencing at Crossroads Park in the amount of $37,500. And we'll hand it back to Rebecca.
Yes, this is a project again that was on the list for the last 2 years. With the weather, the way it's been, they feel that this is a project they could finish before the end of the fiscal year.
Very good. Questions on this request, commissioners? Hearing none, we do need to open this up for public hearings. At this time, if there's anyone online or in the audience that would like to speak to this budget amendment, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, once again, I would move to approve resolution 25-01-CL-06. This resolution in the amount of $37,500, which will be an increase to our facilities and park and rec budget to do fencing out at Crossroads Park.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. The fourth and final item before you this morning, commissioners, is resolution 25-01-CL-07, a budget amendment to increase the fiscal year 25 capital projects for the museum, which is for exterior handrails and the amount of $35,000. And we'll hand this back to Rebecca.
Yes, this is something that the museum brought to us that was on their list. It's first on their list of 2 requests that they had this fiscal year. And this is the one that we feel could be completed by the end of this year.
Thanks, Rebecca. Any questions on this request? Hearing none, we do need to open this up to a public hearing. Is there anyone online or in the audience who would like to speak to this budget amendment? Now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve resolution 25-01-CL-07, a budget amendment in the amount of $35,000 to add additional handrails at our county museum.
Do we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter? Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This is going to move us right along to county resident comments and concerns. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the governing body, we generally give 3 minutes to do such. Please come forward and state your name for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Laura McKee, and I'm just wondering on, and you guys haven't went over it yet, but you have a line item on to recruit the vacant position for the clerk, for the license plate clerk, but the numbers don't add up on that. It shows on there that the increase in the benefits is 2,000. Let me find it here. I had it pulled up and then went into your agenda. It's like $2,924 times 4 different line items. And yet the total is 27,000, which would be 4 employees. So I don't know if they're increasing like the current employees. It just didn't make sense on there.
Typically, you're looking at the net difference, the 27,000.
Right.
So
Because I mean, it shows the 4 totals and then it shows a total of 27,000.
yeah, and so generally what that is just different health insurance plans. And so
Right.
the existing employee may be, just a single person, but the employee to be hired could elect for the family plan, which would be the most expensive addition. And so we generally assume the higher cost until the hiring takes place. So that is the potential impact that it could be as far as the most expensive option.
Okay.
And then depending on which health plan and they go with, it varies from there.
And then what happens to the money if it's like the budget's increased, if it does end up being just because that totals like under 7,000. If it's the cost that it's showing on your paper that you have there, it just doesn't explain it very well.
Yeah, so it would all be based upon the budget that we set for the treasurer's office. I assume is the position you're talking. I think you said the clerk, but this is for the
Yeah, it was
treasurer's
for
office.
for the treasurer. Yeah. for
Yeah,
the
so as long as
license
the
plates.
treasurer has enough money in his budget to cover that, then it would just come out of that. If he doesn't, then he would have to come back before us for a budget amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing when you read those, but we want to know, I don't want to say the worst case scenario, but the most
Right.
expensive scenario,
Right.
just so that we have an idea of what
Well,
the
and I was
fiscal
thinking
impact would be.
because there's currently other title people in there, that do the license plates or license people that maybe that was increasing based on their increase also because
No.
obviously they could have an increase in cost. If one person's getting an increase in health insurance, all of them are. So,
Yeah, no, just different options as far as benefits go.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Commissioner
put in
Richards.
there, one of those possible changes and I think I see this math is wonky, but if we hire somebody who puts their family on health insurance, that's a huge difference in price than if we hire one person who only puts themselves or doesn't take the health insurance at all, because that's an option too. But that all falls under our general line item budgets, but we don't constrain the elected official on who they can hire based on those things. They need to hire the best person regardless of what the costs are with those.
Mr. Chairman, just for further clarification, if possible, I think if you look at this chart, you can see that the proposal is to hire someone at the same salary. Then when you look, the current person, the cost of their benefits is $2,000 a month. The potential cost if someone adds to that is the additional. So you can see that what it's showing is the net difference is the $2,296 a month, which would be the $27,000 a year. Sure. Hopefully we didn't muddy it up by saying some of those things.
Treasurer Cowan, morning, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, just a further clarification. This position has been vacant since October. This year, we're going to issue probably 30,000 new license plates. And so we definitely need to fill this position for this year. But if you watch legislation, we are pushing legislation to move that license plate distribution to the state of Wyoming. So we will no longer be distributing at the counties, which would make it a lot easier for us and be able to cut back on some of these things that we're doing. So, yeah, but it is exactly what they said. The previous employee had no health insurance. So they elected no health insurance. And so that's what the budget came off of, because we budgeted off that employee before she left. So, okay.
Thanks, Treasurer. We're still under the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. If there's anyone else that would like to address the governing body, now is your last chance. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. And Commissioners, this is going to move us right along into tab B. Under tab B today is the consent agenda. You've got 6 items before you. The first being the approval of the January 7th, 2025 meeting minutes, the approval of the county vouchers, warrants, and the expenditure approval listing, along with the Commissioner's report, the approval of the monthly reports, the approval of bonds, the approval of the abates and rebates, and a request to restaff the vacant position in the county treasurer's office. Commissioners, I would ask if there's any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. This is going to move us right along to Commissioner comments. Looks like Commissioner Jones is up first, but he's gone. So I guess that means I'm up first. Does that mean I have to buy lunch, even though by default, or how does this work?
I think we just voucher him.
Oh,
that-
okay. Very good. I'll try and be quick here.
Between that and the liaison assignments, he's going to wish he had been here.
No doubt. The day after our last meeting on the 8th, I attended the monthly mayors and commissioner luncheon. We each discussed the new year and some of the changes with, for them, some new counselors, council presidents and the like. We also briefly discussed the upcoming legislative session and some of the concerns on local government funding. Green River's wrestling with Flaming Gorge days and trying to move forward with getting contracts approved. Rock Springs expressed an interest to attend one of our upcoming meetings to start formulating a plan and a working group to look into options for future ambulance service funding. We've had these discussions kind of lightly in the past, but Rock Springs is making a push to, I guess, put things to action and start looking into the details. Both cities have agreed to be a party to those discussions. So we will be working quite quickly here to formulate a small working group to help push, I guess, the effort forward. So we're prepared ahead of any of the contractual obligations coming up. So both cities felt like the county would be asking for their assistance in the future. And so they would like to be proactive and trying to find some solutions in that regard. We also discussed the Christmas in the Park that the City of Rock Springs put together over the holiday season. Mayor Mickelson stated that they intend to grow and expand that effort next year. So I thought I'd pass that along. I don't know if any of you had the chance to walk through Bunning Park over the holidays, but it was pretty cool. We had lots of good feedback from the community and certainly offer kudos to the city and their parks department for their creativity there. Last Tuesday, I met with County Grants Manager Christina Marshall to further discuss the opioid and problematic gambling funding. Just as a reminder, we're sitting on about 70,000 in problematic gambling and about 1.2 million in opioid funds. And as we continue to look into this, I know I've reported on it a few times, we're trying to find options for how it can be spent and how it can be best spent. And there's just several different strings attached, which is making it a little bit difficult to formulate a plan for. Christina's done a great job of kind of leading the charge and meeting with different agencies that can provide some of that guidance. There's various buckets of money coming through, whether that's from settlements or bankruptcies. And as such, they come with specific uses and reporting requirements for each of those pots of money. And so you've got, if you imagine, with the opioids, for instance, you've got several different, manufacturers that would then have different settlements or bankruptcies. And so it's a conglomerate of a lot of information, a lot of money, which currently is just sitting there in our case, earning interest. But we would like to obviously put that to use. And so Christina is going to reach out and see what a few different options are. Some other counties have elected to look into consulting to help with that. Part of what we're faced with is some of these areas that would make most sense to obviously utilize some of these monies towards. We're asking them what the needs are, and they're saying, well, what can we spend it on? And so it's kind of this deadlock of not knowing what we can and can't do. And so anyway, that's a long story to tell you. We're still working on it basically, and hope to have more answers for you soon so we can start putting that money to use. Last Wednesday, I was invited to travel out to the Bitter Creek drop structure to meet with Tom Burris and Larry Folks from the Sweetwater County Conservation District. Both gentlemen wanted to show some of the ongoing concerns with the drop structure as they shared with us last year. They will be doing some geotechnical work next week in hopes of being able to find bedrock and or where the water is undercutting the structure. If you recall, they've been grouting different areas within and around the drop structure where the water was seeping through in different fractures underground. After that construction took place, which was almost 10 years ago, if you can believe that. I believe it was 2016. So they hope to have more information in that regard. It's working, but the fear is that because it's coming underneath that, perhaps some of the work that was done didn't go down deep enough to the bedrock. But anyway, that's the whole point of doing further testing to figure out what they're working with. So we should know more on that, but appreciate their time and invitation. Later that afternoon, I attended a meeting with Commissioner Slaughter, Public Works Director Gene Legursky, and Sweetwater Events Complex Director Candy Pendleton to discuss future capital projects at the events complex. More or less, Candy was looking for some guidance on how to handle some of their different capital maintenance needs. We had some good discussions, and I believe all walked away on the same page. So I just wanted to express an appreciation to those who show a willingness to work together with the county to accomplish the greater good. It's much easier to try and get on the same page before we get into some of those discussions or, certainly budget sessions. Yesterday, I chaired my bi-monthly Sweetwater County Water Users Coalition meeting. It was a light agenda, but we discussed a handful of topics, including the water report as the numbers relate to the different tract reservoirs. Obviously, with the mild winter, you can imagine the numbers and levels are quite down from last year, in some circumstances quite a bit. The gorge is currently down a little over a foot from this time last year. Other discussions centered around an update from board member Brian Seppi, who recently attended the annual CRUA conference. CRUA is the Colorado River Water Users Association. And during the conference, there were a few different proposals discussed in regard to what they call the post-2026 guidelines. These guidelines define how the Bureau of Reclamation is to operate the two main reservoirs in Lake Mead and Lake Powell. If I understood it correctly, the current guidelines were established in 2007, and about every 20 years they're to be revisited. So discussions and plans are in the works to try and have some agreements by August of 2026, which would then set the new rules for the upcoming water year in 2027. It sounded like the lower basin users had a proposal that, of course, would not be great for the upper basin. So some of that work is on the horizon and will take some collaboration there. Fortunately, there are some very informed members, both on the Water User Coalition Board and others who are keeping a close eye on what that future may hold. Obviously, today we'll be heading down to Cheyenne for the legislative session, as well as the Wyoming County Commissioners Association meetings. It should make for an interesting experience. I was informed yesterday that the Senate Revenue Committee cut all local backfill to the property tax cuts. So here we were just a couple of weeks ago lobbying a few of our local senators to make us whole on the property tax bills that they failed to backfill a year ago, and now we're being faced with even further detriment. Jeremiah with the WCCA sent us some numbers this morning on the fiscal impacts these cuts would have. I didn't have a whole lot of time to dive through them this morning, but at a quick glance, it appears that the impact statewide for fiscal year 25 was about $18 million. The anticipated fiscal impact for fiscal year 26, as it currently sits, would be $227 million. So we can only hope for a little more common sense that comes forth on those. With that, commissioners, I'll keep it somewhat brief and I would stand for any questions. With none, Commissioner Slaughter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 7th of this month, I met with Eva Dahlman, who was the manager at the Hampton Inn here in Green River, to inquire about the viability of blocking 25 rooms for our congressional tour, which will be here the night of August 6th, 2025. Groundwork was laid for further conversations as we received more information about the specifics of that tour. The management of the hotel seems to be very excited to work with us with respect to that. On the 10th, the Flaming Gorge National Recreation Association meeting, which was scheduled to be held at the Green River office, was postponed due to a National Day of Observance for President Carter, which shut down all federal facilities. The meeting was set to be rescheduled for some further time. Later that day, I attended via Teams another meeting on the congressional tour. Each county was represented. This time, we were reminded of the significance of this effort. It is an attempt to show congressional staffers things that they may not have been previously aware of that happen out west with some of the most critical projects or areas that we have, and our ability to show them off, help them to understand some of the things that we do out here in the West. Emphasis was placed on high quality food and sleeping accommodations. We were also given one of the previously used timetables of the events that were done with other counties to serve as a template for our operation. We were then asked to verify online our proposed schedule on the route through our county, which I did, and gave them that first draft, which we have, of what will take place for those congressional staffers coming through Sweetwater County. After finishing the congressional tour meeting, I attended a special capital committee meeting in which we discussed the items that had not been funded in our original fiscal 25 budget, with the intent to identify projects that would be suitable for an inclusion in a new budget resolution. Those were the ones that we actually talked about earlier today. I don't need to talk any further about that. On the 13th, I conducted the monthly meeting of the Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board. Collections this month were the lowest we've collected recently, just slightly over $1.4 million, which is still slightly above what was anticipated to come in over the life of that project on a monthly basis. So still coming in very well. Requisitions continue to be approved at each meeting. I did pass out hard copies of the Joint Powers Board audit that was just completed to our members. On the 15th, the Flaming Gorge National Recreation meeting was rescheduled, and Commissioner Tolman and I met with representatives of the Forest Service as cooperators on the Flaming Gorge National Recreation area. We had a good discussion and addressed several subjects contained in the plan. Final comments are due February 26th. I believe that Commissioner Tolman has got some other things that she will add with respect to that, so I won't step on her toes. Later, as you referenced, Mr. Chairman, we met with the representatives of the County Events Complex and Gene Legursky to discuss capital issues, future capital issues with the Events Complex. I don't think we need to address that any further, as you addressed it. On the 16th, I attended the CLG meeting in Lyman. We heard an update on the Bridger-Teton National Forest Plan from Mike Hanna of the Sublette County Conservation District. Mike felt it was critical that each of the CLG counties submit comment letters on the BT, along with a letter from the CLG itself. Danielle Betancourt was instructed to work on those letters. After that, Trinity Lewis of Congresswoman Hageman's office gave an update on all that is going on in Washington, which obviously this week is very hectic and very busy. Most important thing that I took from her was that the Congresswoman has introduced a bill to reverse both the Buffalo and Rock Springs resource management plans. Not a lot of change other than that, but we did discuss things with respect to Rocky Mountain Power, oil and gas leasing, sage grouse plan amendments, the wild horse plans, which are out there, Western Solar, the current status of our Trona Solution mining facilities, and also the Jackalope Wind Project. That afternoon, I met with Tony and Jen Valdez out at Buckboard Marina to try and get their buy-in to an activity for the congressional tour to be held at Buckboard. They were very excited about the prospect, and we brainstormed ideas for quite some time. They are going to check on availability of some ideas that we talked about, and we are scheduled to meet again in 2 weeks to further develop ideas out there. With all of this work on this congressional task force or this congressional group, Mr. Chairman, I would like to find some time where I can sit down with each of you. We can discuss the tentative plans which we've got and see if there are any things that you think we should add, delete, or maybe things that we can do that which will make that tour just a little bit more special for those people who are coming in from Washington. That night, I met with the Green River Greenbelt Task Force and several stakeholders that have been involved in their organization. The main focus was to provide information on prior projects and to present future goals that they have. Communication, networking, and fundraising were identified as goals for them. On the 17th, as the new liaison to the museum board, which I was pleased to find that I was doing, and extremely pleased to find out when I got the invitation here, I was invited to their annual Volunteer Appreciation and Awards Dinner. We had a buffet at the Santa Fe Trail, and I was able to meet many of the people I will be working with in the future. It was a very nice experience, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet the members of their board and many of the volunteers who actually work with the museum. On the 20th, I took the opportunity to watch several of the inauguration day events. I'm very hopeful that with new leadership and new direction, we'll see a positive change in Washington and that we'll be able to use our relationships to help improve the lives of our citizens here in Sweetwater County. This morning, I was able to go out and watch Commissioner Richards' testimony before the Select Mineral Committee in the Senate. And I thought he did a phenomenal job talking about our industrial siting. The committee did pass the bill unanimously 5-0. So we'll see what happens with that, but certainly it will do better with the testimony that was provided by Commissioner Richards. Later today, as you mentioned, I too will be leaving for the Wyoming County Commissioners Association legislative meetings in Cheyenne. We will be evaluating bills that potentially affect the county and prioritizing our position on them and meeting with our colleagues around the state for the rest of the week. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would end my report and stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Slaughter's report? Appreciate your work on the congressional tour. I know that's a lot to try and jam pack into a short amount of time, especially with multiple county visits, but I think that's going to be a positive experience. And yeah, let us know how we can help you out with that. Hopefully your trip down to Buckboard is a little warmer than it was the last time.
Actually, it was very surprising, but it was very warm, and they were extremely excited to be considered for this. So I think it could be a path to opening another relationship, a positive relationship. And it's something that I think could be a very positive experience for those people on that tour.
Good deal. Look forward to that. Commissioner Tolman, the floor is yours.
Before I start my tour, I would just do a commercial thing for Buckboard. The Bourbon Bash is January 24th and 25th. So get that on your calendars. My report, I also watched parts of the inauguration, and it's a green age. It's a golden age, no more a green age, a golden age for America. The message of hope was wonderful, and to see him signing the executive orders to put federal regulations on hold was a big one, as well as the border issues. So I think it's going to be exciting times, and I hope we can get our country moving in a positive direction. On the 7th, I attended part of the planning and zoning meeting and listened to the Maverick proposal for the Jamestown area. No action on that now. Worked in the office on our federal natural resource policy account bills for the Rock Springs RMP in hopes of taking them to Cheyenne to hand deliver them, and hope to be able to get some positive response on getting some of that money funneled back to the county and our coalition to help cover the expenses on the RMP. That night I attended the Fraternal Order of Eagles. They initiated me in as a member because I don't have enough to do on my plate. So anyway, I feel it's a worthwhile organization. They are an international nonprofit organization uniting fraternity in the spirit of liberty, truth, justice, and equality to make human life more desirable by lessening its ills and promoting peace, prosperity, gladness, and hope. So I thought that was a good mission, and they take all of their fundraising efforts and apply them to local charitable events or causes. On the 9th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Rock Springs Luncheon at Santa Fe, and we got to hear from the Grizzlies hockey team, so I would encourage you to check that out. And Mayor Mickelson, the major concern was Foothill Boulevard and the crazy speed limit of 20 miles an hour, 24/7. But he did say they were doing a traffic study in Rock Springs, so maybe they'll get some of those speed limits lined out. That day, there was a Bridger Teton National Forest Cooperator meeting in Pinedale. From 9 to 12, I was not able to attend that one, but Danielle Betancourt, our coalition legal and other cooperators were on the call. So we're waiting to get our letter requesting cooperator status and also comments on the assessment that they're working on for the Bridger Teton. They somehow think that if Bridger Teton is not in your county, it doesn't affect you. That is not true. We recreate, live, work, play, everything in that county. A lot of us do. On the 13th, I attended Eden Senior Services Luncheon. So their program is thriving and the fitness center is getting a steady business. So it's fun to have so many services out there that we have never had in the valley. On the 14th, I attended the Sweetwater County Weed and Pest Board meeting in Farson. Ron Kobe, our new appointee, was present, as were the other board members. They're focusing on treating 15,000 acres with the new approved Rejuvra on BLM lands at a cost of $625,000, but it is all grant funded. The district will be doing the work, but they are getting funding to do that cheatgrass work. Most of it's south, Little Mountain area, a lot of it. On the 15th, I attended an airport board meeting, my last liaison duty, as I handed it over to Commissioner Richards. So I will let him make some comments on that. 11 a.m. with Commissioner Slaughter, I attended the Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area Open House in Green River at their office over at the Golden Hour. We had some really good discussion about forming a possible collaborative to get key stakeholders more involved in identifying projects, priorities, and funding to move some things positively forward. On the negative note, at the coalition meeting, we voted to protest their plan, mostly because the plan focuses a lot on issues that are not of their concern. So when the Flaming Gorge or reservoir was created, there was a public law 90-540, which they included in their appendix, which outlines the responsibility, and Ashley National Forest is not to be responsible for the Colorado River and the water issues. And yet in this plan, they continually talk about the moss and the fish and issues that are not under their purview. The Bureau of Rec is to deal with the water and anything along the reservoir, or the game and fish with the fisheries. So it's just a very, I hate to be negative, they didn't do any deliberate harmful things as the BLM did in that RMP. It's just very, very poorly written. So that's why we are protesting it. I don't know where we can get with that. We've been commenting for 2 years and asking them to put out a professional plan that is under their purview, and it's just a hodgepodge of, I'm sorry, not good. But at least it isn't deliberate to try to do harm so far. anyway. So hopefully with Commissioner Slaughter, we can move forward and try to do some positive things and get some stakeholders involved where we can actually help improve some of the infrastructure and the projects around the reservoir. Ratty Muir was a former ranger in Manila, and he has been working as one of our consultants with the coalition. And he did have a lot of comments for them at their Manila meeting. That night, I attended the GOP meeting for precinct committee women and men and women. And I cannot stress the importance of this role enough. We need to be more involved and share what's happening with our constituents, and that's part of that role. And today I will leave to go to Cheyenne with my fellow commissioners to attend our County Commission Association and legislative sessions. So that concludes my report.
Thanks, Commissioner Tillman. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Tillman's report?
Mr. Chairman, just one comment.
Slaughter.
As you could tell from our respective reports on those committees that Mary and I share, we typically try and do a big good cop, bad cop with them. And I'll let you figure out which one of us is the good cop and which is the bad.
Well, thanks.
Thanks. She took that as a compliment.
Yeah, they said I was too easy and they were starting to accuse me of being a liberal up here when I told them to turn loose some of that capital improvement funding. So thank you.
Commissioner Richards, you're batting cleanup today.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I don't usually get too politically partisan in my comments, but I want to start off by pointing out that something feels a little bit different in our country since yesterday. Somehow America feels, I don't know, a little bit greater over the last 24 hours. I'm not sure what it is, but I do know that it feels great to be unbidened by what has been. I couldn't be happier about the inauguration yesterday of our 45th president as our 47th president. Congratulations, President Trump. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years and the prosperity that I hope that those years bring to our nation, our state, and hopefully Sweetwater County. God bless America. I've been a bit busy since we last met. On the 8th, I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting right here in this room. They addressed 3 hearings, but I'm sure you noticed those weren't presented to us this morning. And that's because the commissioners chose to postpone all 3 of those hearings to a future date. All of the hearings were related to a development project across the street from Love's, but there are some difficult issues that need to be addressed on that property before any projects can be approved, including the careful unraveling of a decades-old preliminary plat that was made even more difficult by the bankruptcies of previous property owners and some court-ordered subdivisions that didn't take county land use plans into account. We were worried for a minute that the whole project was dead, but it looks like things are back on track now, at least moving in the right direction, if not slowly. On the 9th, I attended an SEDC advisory board meeting where we received updates on Director McDonald's BR&E visits and other economic development projects going on in the county. And Commissioner Slaughter, while you were talking, Director McDonald reached out and said that she would offer her assistance and the SEDC's assistance in the congressional tour planning and anything they can do to help. They're there for. On the 13th, Land Use Director Bingham, Chief Deputy County Attorney DeLeon, and I spent the day in Kemmer at the industrial siting hearing for the Kemmer Power Station Unit 1, which you probably know is the Natrium nuclear plant. The ISC both approved the application to construct the project as well as fully funded the impact funds requests that were agreed to in the MOU. What that means for Sweetwater County is an additional $820,000 and change coming directly to Sweetwater County to help us mitigate the impacts that we'll see from the project. I will say that that won't be enough to fully mitigate the projected impacts, and that's why I've been working with legislators to address that issue. I'll get more into that in a minute. On the 14th, I attended the Reliance Fire Board meeting where about 40 residents of the area attended. There was robust community input and debate about the district's needs and responsibilities. In the end, the existing board members appointed Jolene Levinson to fill the vacancy on the board. I want to commend her as well as existing board members James Brock and Brandon Mortensen for the work they're doing and their willingness to be a member of a special service district board. I can assure you that there is nothing glamorous about running a special service district, but it's important work and I'm glad they're willing to be part of it. On the 15th, local firearms manufacturer Keltec announced their new pistol, the PR-57, which is manufactured in Rock Springs, Wyoming. I want to congratulate them on this milestone and look forward to what comes next. It's my understanding that all future products that they release will be manufactured right here in Sweetwater County. That day, I attended the board meeting for the Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport, where we received news that the airport settled their lawsuit with the previous general contractor for the terminal expansion project. So that is finally behind us. A good outcome from that settlement is the defendant in the case agreed not to pursue any further legal action against subcontractors. So that's good news as well. After the meeting, Director Brubaker took me and Airport Board Chairman Wansley on a tour of the airport and also took us on a tour of the terminal expansion construction site, which seems to be moving forward full steam ahead. Quite a difference from when I toured it a year ago when there was no construction going on. There's a full crew out there moving forward now. Later that day, I attended a meeting of the WCCA's Natural Resource Subcommittee, where we primarily discussed possible resolutions to take to NACO for consideration next month. We identified 5 possibilities, and they're working on the details of those. On the 16th, I attended the Sweetwater County Republican Party's informational meeting where they provided orientation to their newly elected precinct committee men and women. It was a massive turnout, and the sheriff's training room was overflowing with people. Yesterday, I provided testimony to the Senate Minerals Committee in favor of Senate File 19, which would amend the Industrial Siting Act to provide for an avenue to increase the pool of funds available to local governments beyond the current tiered formula. As you know, the Dry Creek project broke the formula, and because the tiers that are now in place, there was simply not enough money available to meet the unmitigated impacts that we identified as part of the application process. The bill passed out of committee 5-0 with minor amendments, and now will be onto the Senate floor. I want to thank Senators Anderson, Nethercott, Cooper, Jones, and Rothfuss for the thoughtful consideration they gave the bill and the positive effects that it could have on future large projects in our communities. On a less positive note, Senate Revenue Committee amended Senate File 69 to remove the backfill to local governments whose budgets will be negatively affected by the homeowner's property tax exemption. What this means is the state continues to accumulate huge surpluses while local governments like your cities, your counties, and your fire boards will bear the cost of the cuts. That means that huge cuts to services are coming your way. Don't get me wrong, I'm completely open to cutting property taxes, but equally distributed taxes on the full market value of property in Wyoming is the tool that the Wyoming Constitution, supported by Wyoming statutes, gives to local governments to provide the services that our constituents demand. If the legislature insists on taking away that tool, then it's incumbent on them to somehow provide a new way to provide those important functions like fire protection in our communities. It's either that or we return to an age where fire trucks don't show up unless you pay them privately to do so, and I don't want to see that happen. It gives a whole new meaning to having a burn it down caucus in charge of our legislature. Going forward, my schedule depends largely on the results of what boards I'm assigned to later this morning, but if the draft slate proves out, I'm looking forward to being liaison for the airport, Southwest Counseling, as well as human resources and IT here in the courthouse. Tonight, I'll attend the monthly meeting of the Fire District Number 1 board. I want to be there to support Reliance Fire Department's pursuit of securing a contract for fire protection, but I don't foresee any problems there. As soon as that meeting is over, like the rest of you, I'll be heading to Cheyenne for 3 days of County Commissioner Association meetings, as well as lobbying legislators on behalf of county governments. On the 28th, I'll be meeting with a representative from the company proposing the Jackalope Wind Farm project. On the 29th, I have a Sweetwater County Outdoor Recreation Collaborative meeting, plus meetings or whatever liaison assignments I received today. I think that is all I have for you today, Mr. Chairman, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate your report. Comments or questions for Commissioner Richards? I've told you before, but your work on the industrial siting is not going unnoticed and been very successful, and that's a huge win for Sweetwater County. I think you dove into that head first and took that by the reins, and that's paid dividends for, I guess, the future of those impacts here. And I watched your testimony yesterday and thought it was very well spoken. He was dressed up. He was in a suit and tie, but it made me wonder if he still had shorts on because he was sitting down. But nonetheless, it was very well received and very well spoken. So congrats on your work there, and just appreciate your continued efforts.
Thank you. Much appreciated. And I got to say, Eric and John make me look good. So
It's a good team. All right, commissioners, that does conclude the commissioner comments portion of the agenda. We are about 5, I guess maybe 10 minutes ahead of schedule. So we're going to take about a 10-minute break here. We'll come back at 10 o'clock and resume with liaison assignments. I was reading.
You're just the chairman, don't worry.
Cindy's looking at me like, what? Call this meeting back to order. Where we left off was just getting into tab C, the action and presentation items portion of the agenda. We are back from break and moving on to item number 2, which is liaison assignments. Commissioners, I emailed a draft out to you all about a week ago. Spoke to you all individually on the phone, just trying to get a feel for some of the change that you all may want to see. So I think overall, with the exception of 1 or 2, we've switched around some of the different liaison duties. Any of the board member appointments remain the same, obviously, because those are actual terms. But this time I'd open it up for any discussion you may have in regards to the rough draft here.
Mr. Chairman, I think it looks really good. Happy to take on a couple challenging roles. Sorry to give up some of the easy ones that I had, but I think it looks like a good plan.
How many hours did you stay awake doing that?
Not too many. I mean, it wasn't too bad. It's,
That's because we're easy, yeah.
well, when everyone works hard and dives in, it makes it pretty easy just to throw out some options. So any other feedback, Commissioner
Well,
Slaughter?
Mr. Chairman, I think it looks good to me. I'm kind of excited to take on a couple different roles and learn a few different things. So I think it'll be good.
All right. I mean, Commissioner Jones is gone. If you want to leave any lasting remarks for him, now would be the time. If not, the proposal is for Grants Administration, Commissioner Slaughter, Human Resources and Veteran Services, Commissioner Richards, Information Technology, IT, Commissioner Richards, Land Use Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Slaughter, Public Works, Engineering, Road and Bridge, Facilities Maintenance, Custodial and Parks, Commissioner West, Purchasing, Commissioner Jones, Court Security, Commissioner Jones, Juvenile Probation, Commissioner Toman. And then that would be for County Core, then Component Unit and Outside Agencies. We've got Combined Communications Joint Powers Board, Commissioner Toman, County Library, Commissioner Toman, County Museum Board, Commissioner Slaughter, Golden Hour Senior Citizen Board, Commissioner Toman, Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees, Commissioner Jones, Public Health and Environmental Health Board, Commissioner Jones, Southwest Counseling Mental Health Board, Commissioner Richards, Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport Joint Powers Board, Commissioner Richards, Star Transit Authority Board, Commissioner Slaughter, Sweetwater Events Complex Board, Commissioner West, Young at Heart Senior Citizens Board, Commissioner West, and Public Lands and the Coalition of Local Governments, Commissioner Toman, although Commissioner Slaughter's had a heavy hand in that as well. And aside from that, everything else would remain as is. So if you're all good with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the proposed liaison assignments. Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any final thoughts? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is item number 3 under tab C. We've got a Southwest Counseling Board appointment. We had a resignation with Melissa Bates, and so this term would fulfill the unexpired term through January 1st, 2027. I guess as the former liaison now, I did have some discussions with some of the applicants and current board members. I also discussed it with Commissioner Richards briefly since he'll be taking over. And my recommendation would be to appoint Margene Chu. And so I guess I'd entertain a motion to appoint Margene Chu to fill the unexpired term on the Southwest Counseling Board through January 1st, 2027.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 4 is an SEDC board appointment. This is a tough one today. This time I'll hand it over to Commissioner Richards.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to appoint Mark Cowan to serve another term on that board.
We have a motion to appoint Mark Cowan to the SEDC board for reappointment. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Just giving you a hard time, Mark. We appreciate your service.
Yeah, go ahead and finish your job now.
The next item, Commissioners, is ratification and certify the Jamestown Rio Vista Fire District Board member appointees. As you're aware, Mr. Bowler and Patsy were at our meeting, I guess our last meeting, discussing some vacancies and not having anyone elected to serve on that board. And so we're seeking some guidance on the proper steps to move forward. And I think with some of our help and the help of the press, they were able to get some interest in that. And so they called a meeting, I believe on the 13th, and had 3 members step up to take over those 3 vacancies that weren't originally filled. And so because of the process and how that comes about with the notifying of the potential vacancy, and they were going to continue serving until they had a replacement, we just thought it'd be best and cleanest to ratify the action that they took. I am proud of those individuals for stepping up and helping out a needed service. And so with that, the appointments made were for Daniel Shedden, Leora Kraft, and David Munoz. And I would entertain a motion to ratify those appointments as defined.
Mr. Chairman, I would do that.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Dave, do you have anything else? You bet. Well, thanks for coming over and bringing it to our attention so we could help out. I'm not sure we did a whole lot. You kind of took the reins there, but it worked out in the end. So it sounds like you got some family to continue the bloodline there too. So good luck. Next, Commissioners, is the amended part of the agenda that we added at the beginning of the meeting, which is the resolution for the horse racing. Basically converting it from a Wyoming corporation to a Wyoming limited liability company. I believe, is it Matt is online to answer any questions?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm here.
All right. So just give us a quick rundown. I mean, we got the information, it's in our packet here, but more or less per the terms of the original resolution that was passed for the parimutuel agreement, I guess it would be. Anytime there's a transfer, you're supposed to notify the respective governing body. So if I understand it properly, you're going from 307 Horse Racing Inc. to 307 Horse Racing LLC. Is that right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the commissioners. Real quickly, my name is Matt Kaufman. I'm a partner with the firm of Hathaway and Coons over in Cheyenne. We represent 307 Horse Racing. We've been working on this transaction for a few months. 307 is essentially in the process of taking on another funding partner to help, add some strength to their balance sheet. As part of that transaction, we're required to convert from a corporation to an LLC. Last month on December 23rd, 307 Horse Racing presented this plan to the Wyoming Gaming Commission, which they're required to do, and that was approved. And now methodically, 307 is going through each of the counties where we have a resolution to operate. I'm appearing remotely today because we're actually simultaneously being heard on this exact issue in 4 counties this morning. So thank you all for fitting us in. But yes, the only change that you all would see is that the entity listed would be LLC instead of corporation. Again, it's just a change for tax purposes. The operations are remaining the same. The individuals operating are the same. The operations themselves will stay the same. And just for the commission's benefit, this exact ask has already been approved in Laramie County and Converse County. We just got word that it was approved in Goshen County a few minutes ago. Natrona is considering this morning, as is Albany County considering this morning. So you're correct, Mr. Chairman, because of the resolution and the language that indicates we can't transfer or change the resolution anyway without your approval. That was the reason for the request. So happy to answer any other questions, but certainly wanted to make the point that nothing from an operational standpoint changes. We're just substituting the LLC for the corporation.
Very good. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate the explanation. Any questions on the request, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to, I guess, amend and assign Resolution 2308 CC03 from 307 Horse Racing Incorporated to 307 Horse Racing LLC due to 307 Horse Racing converting from a Wyoming corporation to a Wyoming limited liability company.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I'd make that motion with the addition that it allows the chairman to sign.
Oh, thanks very much. We do have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I can second that.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, commissioners.
It's going to move us right along to item number 6, commissioners, which is a memorandum of understanding between the United States Department of the Interior, Bureau of Land Management, and Sweetwater County as a cooperating agency on the Jackalope Wind Energy Project, EIS. And I believe Commissioner Jones has stepped up to be the point of contact for this one. Any questions or comments on the MOU?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve the MOU between the BLM and Sweetwater County as a cooperating agency on the Jackalope Wind Energy Project, EIS.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 7 is the approval of Amendment 1 to the federal fiscal year 2025 Community Services Block Grant Agreement. And with us this morning is County Grants Manager Christina Marshall. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and new liaison. Before you, you have for consideration an Amendment 1 to the CSBG grant. Back on August 30th of 2024, you approved and accepted a CSBG grant award from the Wyoming Department of Health for $239,793. The purpose of Amendment 1 is to remove the contractual language pertaining to insurance coverage that was erroneously added by the Attorney General's office. The original agreement was approved due to time restrictions with the pending amendment already in process. So the agreement actually went into effect October 1. CSBG funding is used to alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty. The funding is passed through to agencies to carry out the services. To remind you, there are 5 programs through 3 different agencies. Those are Rock Springs Young at Heart, who uses the money for homemaker and CNA services to elderly and disabled individuals. They also use the money for meals and special diet food to elderly and disabled individuals. Sweetwater Family Resource Center uses their funding for housing assistance. And then the YWCA of Sweetwater County uses it to provide childcare services for parents who are working, seeking employment, or attending school. And they also provide rent and deposit payments to victims of domestic violence through the Victim Advocacy Center. So just in 2 months, 19% of this grant, or $44,900, has already been spent into the community. In your packet, I included first the extract of the section that is being removed. And basically, the language is for regular contractors and not government entities. We fall under the local government liability pool. We also have the Wyoming Association of Risk Management. So I didn't want to enter an agreement where it was not applicable, where they could hold us responsible for that. So you also have the Amendment 1, and finally, the original agreement that you approved last year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Christina. Any questions, commissioners? They're quiet coming out of break.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Too late.
This would appear on their budget sheets. When they submit a budget to the county, it would show that they're getting this money as well, right?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tolman, on the current version, they would have to list that they're getting this funding through Sweetwater County. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve Amendment 1 to the federal fiscal year 2025 Community Services Block Grant Agreement and authorize the chairman to sign all applicable documents.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate it. It's going to move us to item number 8. We're way ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. Item number 8 is the award of the Wyoming Library Multipurpose Community Facility Program for the White Mountain Library. With us this morning is Library Director Lindsay Travis, as well as Public Works Director Gene Legursky. Everyone points to Gene. We had that at the last meeting too. No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So what you have before you is the third time as a charm bid. As I stated in my last one, we bid this project 3 different times, and we finally got a contractor that could provide all the bonds and have bonding capacity to be able to do this job. It's all grant awarded. Great project for the library system. So I would recommend awarding the project for the White Mountain Library in the amount of $430,000 to Shepherd Construction, as stated in your guys' packet.
Thanks, Gene. Appreciate the background. Glad was it finally able to come to life there. We've had a lot of bonding issues, which I guess is a good thing. That tells you there's a lot of activity around here going on.
And I wouldn't say they're bonding issues. It's just there's a lot of projects out there, as I stated before, and contractors up against their bonding capacity. So they have to finish one project, get it dropped off before they can bid on other ones.
Sure.
So it's good for everybody around.
Questions or comments on this request, commissioners? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to award the Sweetwater County Library System White Mountain Library Renovation Project to Shepherd Construction Solutions LLC in the amount of $430,000 and allow the chairman to sign all necessary documents.
Mr. Chairman, as new library liaison, I will make that motion.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by the former liaison, Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Motion's
When-
unanimous.
When
Thanks,
will
Gene.
it be done is the question. Do you have any idea?
I would direct that question to our new library liaison.
Yeah. You don't know?
No, I don't know. I don't know anything yet.
They have to be completed by September of 2026, but I think our contracts say 160 days once they have a notice to proceed.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And the notice of proceed, remember, is different than the notice of award. So they got to get us all the contracts and everything like that, and then we'll let us show notice of proceed. So the clock will start then.
Thank you.
Well, good luck. That's exciting stuff. And again, kudos to you guys for obtaining that funding. Item number 9 is the approval of the reallocation to the fiscal year 2025 capital projects. to reallocate the forfeited funds from the fiscal year 25 completed and closed projects to the fiscal year 25 RTU project. And joining us again is Accounting Specialist Rebecca Romero. The floor is yours.
Yes, so as you can see from the memo, I have listed out the projects that have been completed, the amounts they forfeited. The total forfeit is $101,484.97. However, we are only reallocating $100,000 of that to the RTU project. This was discussed in a December meeting. That should get us to the end of this fiscal year, along with the 1.8 million that they already allocated to that project. And anything further will be discussed in the FY 26 budget.
Very good. Thanks, Rebecca. Questions on this request, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the reallocation of funds for the federal, or excuse me, for the fiscal year 25 capital projects as listed. Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I'm going to abstain on this vote, simply because the place in which I'm employed has that rooftop unit project for the detention center. So with that, motion passes 3-1. And thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item is another break.
Skip it. No.
We do have Stephanie online for the audit. Do you guys want to break, come back for that, and then just keep going? And then if we have to, the final item, I don't see anyone here for yet. I know that's a pretty special
Oh, 11:40.
presentation. So I guess after the audit, we can always break and wait for those individuals to show up. How's that? Stephanie, you're good if we proceed a little ahead of schedule? Okay, good deal. We do have the audit report, which is item number 11 on your agenda. With us today is Stephanie Pickering, CPA with McGee, Hearn and Pies. And at this time, I'll hand it over to you. Good morning.
Perfect. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up?
Yeah, so I think we'll be all right.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay.
There you go. There you go.
If you wouldn't mind, Commissioner West, I'm going to go ahead and screen share. I think that'll be pretty easy today to kind of share with you and have you follow along. Let's see here. Here. Can you, it doesn't look like you can see. How's that?
We can see, yep,
Can everyone see my screen okay there?
yep.
I can't hear you guys. Give me just a second. You mind, someone mind giving me a quick hi or hello and let me know that you can still hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Perfect. That's great. Thank you. All right. Well, Commissioner West and commissioners, thank you so much for having me today. Again, my name is Stephanie Pickering, and I'm here to present the intended results of the audit for Sweetwater County's 2024 audit. My hope today is to kind of work through the 3 opinions that we anticipate providing to the county, and then go through our audit committee letter, which is the communication required under our professional standards to you all as commissioners. It kind of gives you just a layout of how the audit went this year. So I think I'll start this year with a copy of the independent auditor's report and our other 2 opinions. These are what you received in draft form, though our expectation is that this is really going to mirror what the issued and final versions of the opinions will look like once approved by you all. So we'll start here on the independent auditor's report, which is about It's on page 1, but if you're kind of following along in PDF, it's about page 4 in that PDF. The first opinion paragraph up here talks about what we audited. Again, reminds you that we audited the financial statements as of June 30th, 2024. This includes both the county and most of the component units. In about the third paragraph below that, it does make reference or refer to the hospital, which was audited by a different set of auditors, and we make reference and refer to them here in the opinion. Now, the results of what we expect to provide to the county here are in the second paragraph. It says, in our opinion, based on the results of our audit, as well as the results of the other auditors, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, component units, etc. So this is the clean and unmodified language that as commissioners, you all are hoping that you read and hope that the county receives as part of the audit process. Now, in the basis for opinions paragraph, just as a reminder, we audit in accordance with government auditing standards, which is kind of like a level up, if you will, a little bit more comprehensive than normal generally accepted auditing standards. As a requirement, we're required to be independent of the county. We meet ethical responsibilities to perform the work that we do for the county. Now, in the last paragraph, we're going to skip a couple of pages here. This last opinion paragraph, the other reporting required by government auditing standards, again, just makes reference to that additional work we do as Sweetwater County is a governmental entity. And really what that paragraph is telling you all as readers of the financial statements is that you should be looking for at least one more opinion. And that opinion has to do with the work that we do over the county's internal controls over financial reporting. So now I'm going to make a jump towards the back of your report, and we're going to take a look at that opinion now, if you will. And that can be found on actual page number 83, or if you're following along in a PDF, it's here, PDF page 95. Now, under governmental accounting standards, we do take a good look at your internal controls across the county. And then since we also audit component units, you know, that's included in that as well. If there were any internal control violations over financial reporting, any issues that we identify, those would be reported to you all through this opinion. In addition, government auditing standards require us to take a look at compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, state statutes, etc., that could have a material impact on the financial statements of the county. As an example, those items might be whether or not you were appropriately collateralized in your cash accounts against Wyoming state statutes. Were you invested properly and not in any items that were outside of, you know, state statutes? Could you properly present a schedule of expenditure of federal awards? Those would be examples of some of those compliance items that we test throughout the course of your audit. Now, related to the first section, your report on internal control over financial reporting, we did have one audit adjustment this year during the course of the audit that kind of rose to the level that we were required to report that to you all. We did report to you a significant deficiency that could be item number 2024-001. There are 3 levels of internal control findings that we could report. The first most lowest level would be a control deficiency. Those are not required under our professional standards to be written. Those could be just provided to management verbally. The second item is a significant deficiency, and then the most egregious would be a material weakness. The item we are presenting to you all today is just a significant deficiency, and there is further write-up on that included in your report. If you kind of want to take a look at that, I'm going to jump there now just so you can have a quick peek at that. That is here. Really what happened here was an investment got recorded twice. It was a CD that was previously sold. Those proceeds invested into Y class. It just didn't get removed from the balance sheet, so it was recorded twice. About $410,000. So we removed that investment and the related investment income. If you take a look at the cause there, I think this is just some growing pains with your internal controls. And I know the clerk's office and the other offices that are kind of overseeing this particular area, treasurer's office, are working on developing a better control structure with secondary reviews. But I think that's what occurred here was something got prepared, maybe necessarily didn't have a secondary review behind that. It appears that there are control processes that are in place or working to be put in place to avoid a similar like issue in future years. Now, the third opinion that we provide to the county can be found on PDF page 97 or actual page 85. And this is your opinion related to our audit of your federal awards. So we audit your financial statements. We look at your internal controls over your financial statements. And then the third big piece of our audit process is to look at your federal expenditures and whether or not those were spent in compliance with the respective awards. So you might remember as a low risk auditee, we are required to audit at minimum 20% of your federal expenditures every year. This year, the county had about $13.4 million in federal expenditures. And that, I should point out, is the county plus the component units that we audit, excluding any kind of federal awards received by the hospital. So component units plus the county minus the hospital, that's the $13.4 million. We audited 3 programs this year, which accumulated about 57% of the total spending by the county this year. So very similarly to our opinion over your financial statements, we look at 2 areas when we come in to do our audit of federal awards. The first area is internal controls over those federal programs. And then the second item is compliance with the applicable compliance requirements by each individual grant that have a direct and material impact on how those programs operate. So this year we audited 3 programs, and they can be identified here for you all on page 88. The Coronavirus State Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic Expansion Grant, and the Block Grant for Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse. So those last 2 predominantly run out of Southwest Counseling Services, though there is a small portion of funding that the main county itself receives in the Block Grant and Prevention Grant for Substance Abuse. But by and large, most of the testing we performed on those 2 programs were within Southwest Counseling Services. Now, if I pop back up here to the opinion, if we look at your report on internal control over compliance, same 3 levels apply. So control deficiency, those would be verbally communicated to management. Significant deficiencies and the more egregious level material weakness would be communicated in writing through this opinion. We did identify 1 internal control item this year related to some suspension and debarment within one of the programs operated out of Southwest Counseling Services. So there is a significant deficiency reported here in this year. Now, our review over compliance indicated no violations or compliance issues that should be reported to you all. So a clean, unmodified opinion, just 1 small control deficiency there. Now, similarly to that financial statement finding, there is a write-up on that internal control item related to the compliance program. That can be found here on PDF page 102 or actual page 90. You can see here very similarly, it's kind of laid out with, what is the requirements? What did we observe during the course of our audit? What do we think was the cause? And what could go wrong? What is kind of that effect? So as I mentioned, the control deficiency in this instance has to do with suspension and debarment. The county and component units are not allowed to provide federal monies to companies that have been suspended or debarred. And so part of that control process should be something, a process or controls put in place to verify that those vendors or contractors are not suspended or debarred. So in this particular instance that we identified, the contractor the contractor was not suspended or barred, meaning that they were allowed to receive federal money, so no compliance issues there. However, the county didn't have a process to verify prior to that money going to the vendor or contractor that they were not suspended or debarred. So just a little bit of cleanup work there to make sure that all of those vendors or contractors were verified as being appropriate prior to that money being dispersed to them. Now, at the back of the report here, there is corrective actions provided to you all for both instances. The first being the audit adjustment identified during our audit. And then the second has to do with the grant with the suspension and debarment control deficiency. Now, Commissioner West, before I move on to our audit committee letter, maybe I wanted to hit pause and see if there were any questions from you or other commissioners that I could take on our 3 opinions.
Thanks, Stephanie. Questions or comments, commissioners? Did you have? Oh, if I understood that right, Stephanie, so there was the significant deficiency, which basically is a written corrective action plan that identifying how it won't take place in the future. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
In both instances, if we were to report a significant deficiency or a material weakness, we would request the county or the component units to complete a corrective action plan. In this instance, both of them were just kind of that middle level significant deficiencies. The respective offices provided us their plans to be able to mitigate any such related items in the future. Did that clarify?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I mean, I pretend like I understand a lot of this, but you broke that down pretty good. And so I was just making sure I was on the same page. I know, I mean, obviously a significant deficiency is better than a material weakness, but I just wasn't sure the effect that that would have on the county moving forward, or could have, I should say. I mean, obviously we don't want any findings, but, you know, is it kind of like, you know, that's a hit on your credit report kind of a deal, or how does that work for layman's terms?
Yes, sir. You know, a hit on your credit report might be a little bit more harsh than this. Really, anytime you have a significant deficiency in an internal control violation, it's really just highlighting areas where you have opportunity to make improvements in your process. In this particular case, while important, particularly within the compliance program here that has the item, nothing that indicates that there was any improper spending or anything like that. What could happen in the future is if the county or a component unit were to provide money to a vendor or contractor that was suspended or debarred, that was ineligible to receive that money. The worst probably case is that you would have to return that money that would be ineligible or unallowable expenditures that you might have to return to either the state if it was passed through the state, or the federal government, just meaning that those expenditures were unallowable to be spent under the grant. And so that could have some budget impacts to the county or the component units if you were providing monies to a contractor that was not allowed. So that would kind of be the worst case. There is a chance that your pass-through entity or your federal oversight entity, depending on where you receive the monies, could come back and ask for a follow-up. You know, are you making some improvements in your internal controls for the future? But that's my professional opinion at this moment, is that could kind of be the worst of it, if you will. The item related to the financial statements and the audit adjustment, I think that was more just year-end cleanup and approval processes there. So, I mean, similar like things could happen, you know, having your financial statements just not be materially accurate is never a great thing. But I think that the ultimate cause was likely just kind of growing pains in those offices and getting the right people into the right seats on the bus, if you will, to get the internal control structure and segregation of duties built out appropriately.
Okay. Thanks for that. Any other questions, commissioners? Looks like you're good to proceed.
Perfect. All right, we're going to switch here then to our audit committee letter for you all today. And as I mentioned, this is just our communication directly to you all as commissioners required by our professional standards. I really like the letter. I think it succinctly tells you kind of how the audit process went and if there are any big items that you should be aware of about the audit or as you kind of review the financial statements. So it looks like this. It says the report to the Board of County Commissioners, Sweetwater County. We're actually going to skip this kind of intro paragraph then and move to the required communications section here. And there's a lot, but maybe I'm just going to highlight what I think are some of the important paragraphs for you all today. Now, under the accounting policies and practices section, there are 2 paragraphs that talk about your significant policies, practices that are implemented to record the financial information of the county. The first paragraph here talks about how those most important policies are disclosed to you all in footnote 1. And then the second paragraph talks about the adoption or change of any accounting policies. And that can be found, this paragraph just informs you that there were no changes or any adoption of any new standards during the course of the year, which is just kind of really helpful information. Now, maybe one thing that I will point out that doesn't really kind of fit within this letter, and it's not really a change in policy per se, and it doesn't have to do with the adoption of any new accounting or GASB standards, but really maybe has to do with how you all have elected to treat property taxes in the component units. If you were kind of paying attention to kind of some like revenue and expenses and the general fund, and then if you were looking at the discretely presented component units and whether monies came in through property taxes or appropriations, you're going to notice if you had a copy of this year's report in front of you and a copy of last year's report, that with that property tax change that you all implemented, it didn't impact the total bottom line per se, but you definitely see some fluctuations in different line items. So for example, if you're looking at the component units, you're going to see more appropriations revenue this year, whereas you're going to see less property tax revenue. Vice versa is going to happen within the general fund. You're going to see property tax revenue increase quite a bit compared to 2023's report. Conversely, you're going to see a lot more expenses out to the component units for their budget appropriations there. So while that's not included within this letter, I thought that I would just point that out because that is kind of a bigger change from year to year. Something you definitely wouldn't notice since your financial statements aren't comparative. They don't have 2024 in a column compared to 2023, but just a point of order or point there to share with you all today. Now, other paragraphs here, significant accounting policies in controversial areas or emerging areas. There were no such items here to disclose to you all. If there were, we are required to share those with you. I always like to give an example of cryptocurrency as an example. If state legislature changed their investment policy that allowed the county to invest in cryptocurrency, that might be an example of something we would disclose to you all there, just because that continues to be a new and emerging area. There's not a lot of accounting guidance on reporting and disclosing that. So that would be an example of something that we might report to the board in that particular paragraph. Now, significant unusual transactions, nothing significant out of the ordinary for the county to report to you all here. Financial statement disclosures. If there are certain areas of the financial statements or disclosures that we think are more sensitive or maybe have a higher level of importance to you all as readers, we share those to you or for you through this paragraph. There are 2 items that I would just like to call your attention to. The first is the net pension liability found in note 6, and then the OPEB liability, which is found in note 18. Same 2 disclosures that I pointed out last year. The reason we share these with you is just because they're really big the really big numbers, those liabilities. They have an estimation process behind them, and that liability, depending on any given year, can fluctuate pretty wildly, given the assumptions and any kind of changes that happen throughout the year. So really with that volatile nature, those liabilities going up and going down, we just like to point those two footnotes out to you all. Observations about the audit process. This is probably my favorite section, particularly for the county, because it's a really good section, and I think that it speaks highly to the level of people that are employed by the county or elected by your constituents, because it's very clean. Nothing of concern really at all to point out to you all here. So no disagreements with management during the course of our audit over the application of any significant accounting policies, any judgments that they made as a management team, the scope of the audit, or any disclosures that needed included within the financial statements. We're not aware of any instances where any of the management team or teams within the county disagreed with us on any items and attempted to opinion shop or obtain a second opinion. Now, this paragraph does call attention to Porter, Muirhead, Corney, and Howard, who is employed by the county as kind of some extra assistance, if you will, to help get you all ready for the audit. We do call attention to that, but nothing untoward or unusual about that relationship. No difficulties in dealing with your management during the audit. No items that we found to be difficult or contentious that we felt like we had to reach outside of our office for additional consultation. So overall, a very clean year. We very much appreciate the work and the assistance from Clerk Lane and Ms. Romero, and then Ms. Wilkinson from PMCH and Casper. All were very, very responsive to my audit team while we were either working remotely here in our office or when we were on site in the county offices working on compliance or the financial statement audit. So very much appreciate the cooperation during this year's audit. Now, lastly, a couple of paragraphs here to point out internal control and compliance matters. It does call attention to both our financial internal control opinion as well as the uniform grant guidance opinion, which we have previously discussed. And then lastly, I just want to share the significant accounting estimates that can be found within the county's financial statements. So it is not unusual for any entity to have accounting estimates. Particularly one the size of Sweetwater County. If there is an accounting estimate that we think rises to a significant level based on our risk assessment, we share those with you. And during our audit process, it's very important that we take a look at the assumptions behind those significant estimates, how the estimation process was approached, and whether or not we think that the estimate process used by the county or any component unit therein was reasonable. So for you all, there's estimates in the pension liability, both at the county and within the component units, the OPEB liability, and then for your self-insurance program, the incurred but not reported claims. So those are the three large significant estimates that we have identified in your financial statements. In all three issues, we took a look at those estimation processes and found those to be reasonable and no issues with those items. So with that, I kind of get to the end of the presentation of the audit committee letter. Now, once we are done, it will be attached the representation letter, which is signed by miscellaneous members of the county, and then I believe Commissioner West as his role as the chairman. This letter just really tells us that the county and any component units were truthful with us during the course of the audit, provided us what we needed to complete our audit appropriately, that they were transparent with us so that we could appropriately do our job. So that final issue version of the audit committee letter, which will come to you all, will have a copy of that signed representation letter attached. So with that, sir, I will turn it back over to you all for any questions that you might have about our audit committee letter or the audit process. Happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
All right. Thanks, Stephanie. Questions or comments, commissioners? They're still awake, I promise.
do
I
have one-
understand it's not the most thrilling, but appreciate your time.
Commissioner Tillman?
I do have one question. Isn't this report usually done by the end of December?
Yes, primarily there was a little bit of timing issues this year with coordinating the report preparation that was done with your consultant auditor and just kind of getting that coordinated with the holidays and then getting the timing to sync up appropriately with your meeting today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so is our next step then to formally accept this audit letter, or where do we go from here?
Yes, sir. Commissioner West, through you, I think that traditionally has been your process is you accept the report today, and that kind of is our final stamp of approval, if you will, to go ahead and finalize and date the report.
Thank you.
Clerk Lane, did you have something?
Thank you, Chairman West, Commissioners. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Pickering from MHP. The team that they send out to work on our audit is phenomenal, very respectful, very responsive individuals, and the whole entire team has been a great help to us with the transition, moving over from the tax to the appropriations. Made it a little longer for us all trying to get all that taken care of. But I just wanted to thank them for the great team that they send out to us in Sweetwater County. It's always a pleasure working with them.
Very good. Any other comments or questions on the audit report? Well, Stephanie, as always, very informative. We appreciate all the reports you included. I know you probably don't get a lot of feedback with these audit reports, but a lot of that's due to just the way you kind of break it down and explain it for the average plumber to understand here. So we appreciate your work and certainly working together with different departments throughout Sweetwater, and we'll take these recommendations to heart and look to improve next year and hope for no findings and continue to plug along. I know we've had a lot of changes and you've been with us every step of the way with that over the last couple of years. So we're excited to try out some new software this year moving forward, and hopefully that helps define some of these and provides a little more clarity. So thank you and your firm for your work.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll be heading your way later today. So if you could turn up the temperature and turn down the wind, that would be much appreciated.
I hope the roads are good for you all. It was a little icy this morning.
Thanks very much. Commissioners, this brings us to our last order of business this morning, but I know we're still waiting on some individuals, I believe. So why don't we take a quick break? Yeah.
Do we need to take action on this?
Oh, yeah, that's probably pretty important. Good call. Yeah, I'd entertain a motion to accept and approve the audit report as presented and authorize the chairman to sign.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any
Slaughter was scared to do it.
final thoughts?
I'm just so far isolated down here, I can't hear anything that's going on. So I'm not just kidding.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Commissioner. Good catch. With that, we're going to take a quick break. Hopefully we'll resume here in the next 10 or 15 minutes, but I do know there's still a few that wanted to be here for this. So take a quick break. We will call this meeting back to order. Where we left off was tab C, item number 12. Apologize to keep some of you waiting. We were about an hour ahead of schedule, so we've got an important final item here on the agenda that we wanted to make sure everyone was here in attendance for. So at this time, we do have a life-saving award presentation for Skylar Hosley, and I'd hand it over to Sheriff Grossnickel.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, as Sweetwater County Sheriff, on behalf of the dedicated men and women of the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office, we firmly believe in honoring individuals who demonstrate extraordinary courage and selflessness in service to others. In keeping with this commitment, I am proud to formally recognize Skylar Hosley for his exceptional bravery and life-saving actions, which embody the highest ideals of community spirit and personal sacrifice. On the evening of Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, Skylar was attending swimming practice at the Western Wyoming Community College swimming pool when he noticed his friend and teammate Ethan experiencing a sudden medical emergency in the lane ahead. Recognizing the severity of the situation, Skylar immediately sprang into action. He ensured Ethan's airway remained above water and promptly called out to nearby lifeguards for assistance. With Skylar's help, lifeguards successfully removed Ethan from the pool. Skylar's involvement didn't end there. He demonstrated remarkable composure by retrieving Ethan's phone and belongings, notifying Ethan's parents, and guiding first responders to the facility to ensure Ethan received timely emergency medical care. Skylar's swift and selfless actions were instrumental in averting a potentially tragic outcome and exemplify an extraordinary commitment to well-being of others. While I believe Skylar's actions during this incident merit special recognition, I would like to present Skylar with this Citizens Life-Saving Award and ask the Board of County Commissioners to join me in expressing our deepest gratitude and admiration for Skylar's heroic efforts and outstanding service to our community. Photos.
Yeah, we can do that. I just wanted to share, when I first heard the news, it's heartbreaking to hear of an event like that taking place. Hurts a little worse when you're related to the individual. And I just want to tell you that you're a saint and a hometown hero, and Ethan's a member of my family and someone I care about a lot. And don't look at the family right now because that makes it a little harder. But my little 5-year-old boy looks up to him very much as his bigger cousin, and he's still here because of you and your quick call to action. So you're a godsend, and we appreciate you doing everything you did to keep him here. I know after the event, there was a lot of questions and unknowns, and he's a senior this year, and so the future of his final year was kind of in question, and I'm happy to report and understand that he's back in the pool and not letting that moment define him. And that's due to you and your quick actions in the pool and for saving his life. So tremendous gratitude to you. And I think I can speak on behalf of the family that they're forever indebted and appreciative of your actions that day. So job well done.
Thank you.
Do a picture. I know at least one of you is in the Academy of Public Service. Would either of you like to put that to use? Have any moments for?
That's all good. So my name is Ethan Visart, and I was like the survivor of the water incident that took place. After it took place, like a month or two later, we finally got results, and it kind of cleared up more and more about what happened. And to be honest, I don't really remember what happened that day, but I am so grateful for Skylar for what he did for me. And that's all I got. That's all I got.
That's enough. Anyone else? Open mic. We'll thank Sheriff Grossnickel and the Sheriff's Department for allowing us to be a part of that, especially with a little personal touch there. It's certainly something that deserves recognition, and you got a bright future ahead of you, Skylar. So keep up the good work. And with that, if you guys want to come to our other meetings, you know, they're very entertaining. We enjoy big audiences. And that does conclude the regular business before us this morning. However, commissioners, we do need to enter into executive session to discuss potential litigation. So I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. I believe we had a second by Commissioner Slaughter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. We're now in executive.